Okay, so I'd like to sort of pit the TV guys against the feature guy for a second and say,
Get up on me.
in terms of telling great stories that are going to connect with people across borders, do you feel like there's something that's fundamentally different, better about the structure of television, of long-form storytelling, or the structure of feature films? Like what frees you, what constrains you?
You have an ability to go a lot deeper with more characters in television and to stay with them and attach to them in intricate ways because you're with them week to week to week. Whereas film, you've got 2 hours. That's why films are generally, as I say at the beginning, about story, about plot versus characters.
I mean, I think in long form with series, you can really delve deeper into an issue. I think we all in our lives know that you can't solve your problems in 2 hours, and it sort of takes a lot longer. And in TV, you can really explore the nuances, the small moves back and forth. In movies, you're like, you got to go to get out, right? Like there would have been, if you look at Whiplash, like a lot of really interesting scenes that could have taken place between those things, more with that girl, more with his family. You could do all those things in a series. In a movie, you got to crunch it all together and do that. But I wonder if the target is different. Like, is the target for a movie where you want it to be more escapist because people are going to pay, to go there for 2 hours. They want to get out of their house and have a community experience in a room with a lot of people, you hope, rather than watching it on your phone. But is there anything about the community experience of watching together that makes you want to tell a different story than sitting alone in your house?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question. I've heard this question before, but I think from a business production point of view, features, because sometimes you're making a 2-hour film for $150 million, you have certain benefits of being able to bring in the biggest stars and doing the biggest things. But I think over the past 10 years, some of the best creative work in Hollywood, if you talk to the filmmakers, we're mostly referring to television. We think the television,
thank you.
The storytellers are really the best. And I think it's one reason why we have this huge renaissance in television on series and episodic.
Well, movies are changing. The middle ground drama doesn't really exist in movies anymore. It's very hard to get those made. Movies either, it seems, and I'm guessing, that if you can make a cheap movie, you're good. If you can make a really expensive movie, pretty good. But if you're just going to spend like that $20, $30 million movie, there's a harder target because chances are, there's not a huge audience for that, and you've taken enough of a risk where you might not make your money back.
I think with the direction of where Hollywood is going, because the studios are public, and you can't make, the sequel to Whiplash 2. But you could do Avengers 18. That unfortunately, in terms of what you could see on the big screen and the stories, and I think it's continuously diminishing, and it's to the detriment of the audience.
It's interesting. You look at like when you hear the award shows, the best pictures and things. You used to be able to have a best picture contender that was Kramer versus Kramer. Two parents arguing over their child. Now, the closest you can get is it's Braveheart. So it's a big epic, but it still has this sort of historical importance to it. It still has this character sacrifice, emotional love. But most of the award-winning films aren't really the biggest box office successes anymore because they're smaller, and maybe we're telling those stories now in television because you can do it for a budget.
I think that the last year of the Oscars, I think from a filmmaker point of view, it's also reassuring. Spotlight, a little film that nobody gave it a shot,
Yeah.
Won the Oscars, and The Room. These are small movies that shows that they should be made, and the studios should back these movies. They shouldn't just try to do all their earnings based off of 3 movies a year, right?
A studio used to make those movies, and now they're independent movies that then get made, and a studio hopefully buys it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we digress.
Well, but what about, back to your point about telling stories over a long period of time in television, I mean, maybe these go together. What about the way that television is changing? So you're writing for Netflix right now. Do you write differently when you're expecting everybody to watch every episode back to back?
I get really much more excited about it. That's for sure. You don't have to have commercial breaks. You aren't having to spend the first part of the next episode reminding the audience of what happened in the episode before, because chances are they just finished watching it. Maybe they went to the bathroom, then they came back. Maybe they got a little nosh, a little bite to eat. But you're right there again, and you can really get somebody swept up in the emotion. I feel like particularly in suspense or horror element, I think TV would be a better place to tell it now in Netflix or in cable, because commercial breaks in tension and suspense do not work. You're trying to build this story, and if you have to go sell a car every 6 minutes or toothpaste, it's like, oh, what's going to happen now? And mouthwash. It's not that great. But now with Netflix, you can tell these great stories, and it almost feels like it's a 13-hour movie and not a series of 13-hour stories.
It began, we take for granted now that we're doing serialized storytelling. It's an ongoing story as opposed to, it's a horizontal story as opposed to a vertical story, each week beginning, middle, and end. Each week beginning, middle, and end.
When I'm writing for TV that has commercials, every commercial break, you have to craft your story specifically to a point that will hopefully make somebody not change the channel, which means that 6 times you have to have some exciting thing about to happen or some scary thing about to happen, which means that you get less time to build character, to build emotions, to have people just talking. And so it's changed the way we write when you have that many commercial breaks. At least in America, there used to be 4 commercials, now there's 6. And so it's changed how we tell our stories. And that's why some of the best TV that you're seeing now is done for cable, where there's no commercials. I think that there's no way to confuse that. I mean, yes, it's better quality, but also the viewing experience is better. No offense to the networks that have paid me.